Welcome back to Let's Talk About Scams podcast. I'm your host, Joyce Petrowski, founder of R.O.S.E Resources Outreach to Safeguard the Elderly. You can find more resources on our website at www.roseadvocacy.org. And you can also find links to our social media channels. We're on Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram. And you can scroll down on the homepage and there will be a link if you want to sign up for our emailed newsletter or our mailed newsletter, or you can sign up for both. And don't forget, you're going to want to click on that subscribe button to not miss an episode of Let's Talk About Scams podcast. So today, I've got a guest. We're going to talk about a real life situation regarding a tech support scam. Well, welcome, Janet. I'm so glad you're here with me on Let's Talk About Scams podcast today. We had a conversation a couple weeks ago, and you mentioned to me that you knew somebody who had been scammed. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. So, about a year and a half ago, a 92-year-old family member of mine received an email alert that his computer was completely locked down. And it was very scary. It says, access to this PC has been blocked for security reasons. Contact Windows support with the phone number for the supposed security helpline. And additional pop-ups on the screen were do not restart or use your computer. Your computer is disabled. Please call Microsoft. Access is the blocked security reason for this computer. Please contact us immediately. A technician will help you solve the problem. And an additional alert says that the computer has alerted us that it has been infected with a Trojan spyware. The following data has been compromised: email credentials and banking passwords. Unfortunately, yeah, pretty scary. Unfortunately, my family member clicked on allowing someone attached to the message to remotely access the computer. And then he proceeded to call the phone number, supposedly for Windows support, and from there the scam started.
Wow. So, that's interesting, the tech support scam is what that is. And, years ago, how, there would be a pop-up, but it would be very basic. Your computer's got a virus, you need to call us to get rid of it. And so I'm listening to what you're saying, and they do have that on the pop-up, but then they talk about they've added all these other messages, all these other layers about you've got a Trojan horse on your computer and your email and banking credentials have been compromised, and which makes it, especially when they throw in banking credentials have been compromised, that's really scary. And that is going to make someone want to hit that allow button and then call the phone number that's on there because they're afraid, someone's gotten into their bank account. So so he ended up calling.
He ended up calling.
And so what happened when he called?
Well, when he called, the first thing that happened was that a male was on the other end of the phone saying that that person was with Microsoft, and that somehow during that exchange, the scammer gained the remote access to the computer and told him that his bank account was fraudulently accessed and charged a very specific amount, which happened to be the exact balance in the checking account at that time. So then he got a phone call on his cell phone, from another number. And when he answered it, there was a male who identified himself as a bank employee. The scammer, alleging to be the bank employee, told him he needed to go to the bank and withdraw this very specific amount of money, not to give any details to anyone, not to the bank employee, not to family members, because these people could all be involved in the fraudulent activity. So he went to his bank, he withdrew all of the cash, even though the bank employees there questioned why he was doing this. And then he called the fraudulent phone number back saying that he had the money, and he was told to go to a gas station and look for the Bitcoin exchange kiosk there and to purchase Bitcoin with the cash.
Wow. And did the scammer give him like an account number when he was to put the cash in the Bitcoin ATM, and or did he even get that far with it?
You know, I don't have that information because my family member was very tight-lipped about everything that was going on even after this event happened. He did drive to the local police department and sat in the parking lot, and the scammer called him back at that point to see if he had done that, see if he was on his way to the gas station. And my family member said, "No, I'm not going to a gas station." That he didn't feel comfortable doing that. So they said, okay, there's another Bitcoin exchange kiosk at the local shopping mall. So he drove to the shopping mall and was wandering around in the mall, and two mall employees saw him kind of at the kiosk asking what he was doing, and he was uncomfortable with talking to them, but they told him it was a scam and not to do it.
Oh, good.
Yes. And then walked him back out to his car. And then at this point in time, the scammers called him back and asked if he was there at the kiosk. And he told them then, "I'm not doing this." And he drove to another branch of the same bank and finally got with a bank employee, and they closed the one checking account and had to open a whole new checking account with the cash that he had withdrawn.
Wow. Wow. And so this probably went on for
Hours. And in the meantime, he was not contacting me or any other family member to let us know what was going on because he had been told not to trust anyone. And by the time we heard about it, it was over, and he was trying to minimize what had actually happened and that he'd been almost scammed, and trying to blame what happened on other things, and
Right.
was embarrassed by this point.
I bet. Yeah. Embarrassment happens a lot when people come close to, falling victim to a scam, or they have fallen victim to a scam. Embarrassment is probably one of the number one reasons why they don't share the information with anyone, the situation, and that they don't report it. It's what started out as what could have been a very detrimental thing that could have, scam that could have really hurt financially, emotionally, psychologically, ended up at some point during the whole process, something in his mind, or he had more time to sit and think about it instead of acting quickly, that he was then able to think more about it, that, this just doesn't make sense. And so he was able to keep the money and get it into a new account, in order to protect the money. But did he then come out and talk to any family members right away about it? Or was it just something that he thought, or that he was hoping that would just go away and, it wouldn't get talked about anymore?
Well, he called me and another family member talking about what happened in a kind of a roundabout way that didn't
Okay.
place any blame on himself for having fallen for the scam. He was trying to complain about his internet connection, that it wasn't secure and that someone had gotten into his computer. And then he tried to say to another family member that the bank had called and told him that he needed to do this because his account had been compromised. And we both realized that he had been scammed, and we encouraged him to go to the police about it, and he was terrified. He said, "I can't go to the police. They know where I live. They're going to come and kill me."
It is very scary because you don't know how much information the scammer has, right? And it's interesting that the scammer knew exactly how much money was in the bank account. So when he initially hit that auto connect button, I think that let the scammer in his computer. And then the scammer was able to look at a lot of different things. Do you guys have any idea how he might have been targeted in the first place?
Well,
Or if you think it was just random?
Well, I don't know how random it was, but he had been using the same email address since 1999, and it was everywhere. Business contacts, banking, credit cards, and things like that. And it was a very old email address that the extension doesn't even really exist anymore. And the ISP that he was using and the browser that he was using were not that up to date and that secure. And so we suspect that he may have purchased something online. About a week before, he had purchased some vitamins that were supposed to help with your memory. And we suspect that perhaps that might have been somebody who sold that email address for being a possible senior.
Possibly.
A possible senior who might be susceptible to a scam.
As to how much information scammers really do have on just about everyone. They can buy this information, on the dark web, and it's, they can get it in a variety of different ways, or the hackers get it in a variety of different ways. They get it from hacking into companies and then stealing the company's information. They can get it from, you're purchasing something on the website and that website has been compromised. Or, even with the email addresses, it could be a friend or a family member's email address that has you listed as a contact in their emails, as a saved contact, and their email was compromised, and now they've got access to all of the contacts. There's just so many different ways that scammers get this information that they then use to try to exploit you and get you to turn over your personal information or your money. So what did you guys do after you found out what was going on? You said he filed a police report.
He did.
Which was great because it gives the police more information about what's going on, because he is not the only one that was contacted with this by these same scammers. Luckily, he was able to realize it and not give his money away into that Bitcoin machine. But I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that ended up putting their money in those Bitcoin machines. What is there anything in particular that you guys put in place that that would help protect him in the future?
Well, what we did, and we found that because of this old email address and this old browser that he was using, there were a lot of ads there, clickbait kind of things. And
Right.
we ended up closing down that old email account and creating a new email account through Google because they're pretty secure with and aggressive in spam blocking and things like that. And we're
Okay.
able to clean up his computers. We had somebody come in IT wise to go through and make sure that there was nothing that had been installed on
Oh,
his
good.
computer or other information compromised. And we got rid of that old browser and any other browser that we felt would be compromised. And so he only uses the one browser that is Google's browser, and now this one Gmail account. And we do monitor it now because we don't want anything to pop into his inbox that might encourage him to
Right.
open it. And gratefully,
Right.
it's working. That's working.
Good, good. Did you guys implement like sort of any antivirus
Oh,
software
yes.
on his devices?
Yes.
And make sure that they're running all the time. It's not one that you have to go in and tell it to scan, that it's running all the time. So if if a virus does creep its way in, the software will identify it right away.
Yes.
And then I'm sure he knows that if he gets any more pop-ups, anything like that, saying that there's a virus, that he has this tech support person's number to call, or you guys to call, or, the phone number to if the place where he bought the antivirus software has tech support, that he could call them directly to help out. Because it's unfortunate, but, because he was targeted and engaged in all of that, if they haven't already tried again, I'm sure they will be trying again in the future. So thankful that you guys were able to put all this protection in place for him and help keep him safe. Because that was a close call.
It was a very close
That
call.
was a close
It was
call.
a very close call.
Yeah.
And we also were
And
concerned.
that would have been, I mean, what he went through was devastating enough. All of the emotional and psychological stuff that he went through. But then to add the financial aspect on top of it, I think now you have an understanding how that really can affect an older adult. Again, not just financially, but psychologically, emotionally, and it's unfortunate, but sometimes people have a hard time recovering from that. It brings on a lot of other issues. So, Janet, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to share your story. I think when people hear real, true life stories, it just hits home more and makes them more aware and understanding that, yes, this can happen to me. This can happen to my family member. And I need to start having these conversations, and I need to make sure different things are put in place so we can be protected. So I thank you very much for sharing your story.
You're very welcome.
You just heard from my friend Janet, who talked about her real life situation with a family member and a tech support scam, and how devastating this can be to not only the victim, but family members as well. So let's review some tips. Awareness and understanding is your first step to protecting yourself and your hard-earned assets. Always have a healthy skepticism and question the situation and what the person is asking of you. This helps you be less susceptible to falling for the scams. So in closing, let's remember to be skeptical with that unexpected contact. Slow down and take the time to verify before you trust the situation and the person. If you're contacted about an issue with your device, talk to your trusted tech support person. Don't have a trusted tech support person? Ask another trusted person in your circle of family and friends for a recommendation. And that contact can come in a variety of ways. Pop-ups on the screen on your device, like we learned today. It could be a phone call, a text messages, emails, variety of different ways. So make sure you have a trusted tech support person that can help you. And remember that scammers are always trying to get your personal, identifiable information and money. And scams can happen to anyone. So you're going to want to make sure you talk to your loved ones about what you learned here today. Thank you for joining me, and you can find more resources on our website at roseadvocacy.org. Find our social media links and follow us there, and sign up for our newsletter. There's an emailed newsletter and a mailed newsletter. And don't forget, click on that subscribe button so you don't miss an episode of Let's Talk About Scams.